In the dusty twilight of Arizona Territory, 1885, a weathered Apache named Running Creek leads his last possession, a paint horse named Thunder, down Main Street. Townspeople whisper as he approaches the abandoned Miller house at the edge of town. The transaction is simple: one horse for one house. A final surrender of his nomadic past. Inside, the floorboards creak beneath his moccasins. The air hangs still until a small whimper breaks the silence. Behind a door, 5 children huddle, abandoned, hungry, afraid. Their eyes meet his, and something long dormant stirs in his chest. Could a man who spent his life alone become the father these children need? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Running Creek stood frozen in the doorway, his weathered hand still gripping the tarnished brass knob. 5 pairs of eyes stared back at him from the shadows, wary, hungry, afraid. For a man who had spent decades in solitude, the sudden presence of children felt like thunder without warning. "Who are you?" The oldest girl stepped forward, chin raised despite her trembling lip. Her dress hung loose on her thin frame, once white collar now gray with dust and time. "Running Creek," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "This my house now." He hesitated. "Who you?" The children huddled closer together. Running Creek noticed how the oldest boy positioned himself before the smallest child, a tiny girl with tangled blonde curls who sucked her thumb silently. "I'm Sarah," the oldest girl said. "These are my brothers and sisters, William, Emma, Henry, and little Rose." She pointed to each in turn. "Our parents died of the fever 2 weeks past. We've been waiting for them to come back." Running Creek felt something tighten in his chest. He knew death didn't work that way. "You have food?" he asked, glancing around the sparse room. Sarah shook her head. "Just some cornmeal. It's almost gone." With a nod, Running Creek retreated to his saddlebags by the door. He returned with dried meat and a small pouch of parched corn. The children watched with cautious hope as he moved toward the cast-iron stove in the corner. "Fire," he murmured, noting the cold hearth. William stepped forward reluctantly. "I've been trying, but the wood's damp." Running Creek knelt beside the stove. From his belt sheath, he withdrew a battered tin cup with a wire handle, his only cooking vessel from years on the move. With practiced movements, he arranged kindling, added a pinch of dry grass from his pocket, and struck a match. Within minutes, flames licked upward. He worked in silence, aware of the children's eyes following his every move. He sliced the jerky thin, added water and cornmeal, and stirred with a long wooden spoon he found hanging by the stove. As the simple stew simmered, the aroma drew the children closer, inch by cautious inch. "You Apache?" little Henry asked suddenly, eyes wide with both fear and fascination. Running Creek nodded once. "Pa said Apaches scalp people," William blurted, then looked immediately regretful. Running Creek's face remained impassive. "Some do, I do not." Sarah hushed her brother with a sharp glance. "Thank you for the food," she said formally. When the stew was ready, Running Creek poured portions into mismatched bowls he found on a shelf. He served the children first, from youngest to oldest, then took nothing for himself. He watched as they ate greedily, little Rose spilling most of hers down her already stained dress. Without a word, he took the tin cup that had traveled with him across deserts and mountains, through snowstorms and summer heat. He filled it with stew and gently placed it in her tiny hands, closing her fingers around the warm metal. She looked up at him with solemn blue eyes. "Children need home," he said finally, looking at Sarah. "Where you go if not here?" "The sheriff said orphan train or workhouse in Tucson," she whispered. "We've been hiding." Running Creek nodded slowly. He understood hiding. "You sleep here tonight," he decided. "I sleep by door." As darkness fell completely, Running Creek arranged threadbare blankets for the children near the stove's lingering warmth. The little ones fell asleep quickly, exhaustion overcoming fear. But Sarah sat up, watching him. "Will you send us away tomorrow?" she asked. Running Creek looked at her for a long moment. In his 60 years, he had never been responsible for anything more fragile than his horse. Yet something stirred in him, a memory of elders in his tribe who took in children who had lost their parents to war or sickness. The circle of family that extended beyond blood? No, he said simply. Not tomorrow. Later, as the children slept in a tangled heap of limbs and blankets, Running Creak sat with his back against the door. His tin cup rested empty beside him, no longer just a vessel for his solitary meals, but now the first offering to a child who had accepted it from his hand. He traced his finger along its dented rim and wondered what his ancestors would think of him now. A lone Apache watching over white children in a wooden house that smelled of dust and sorrow. Outside, he could hear thunder nickering softly to the night sky, now belonging to someone else. Inside, the sound of children breathing filled the silence he had carried for too many years. Dawn brought clarity Running Creak had not anticipated. 5 children, no food, a house with more holes than shelter. As morning light filtered through tattered curtains, he studied their sleeping faces and made his decision. "We go to town," he announced when they awoke, his tone leaving no room for debate. The children dressed in their worn clothes, Sarah attempting to smooth little Rose's wild curls with her fingers. William stood protectively near the door, watching Running Creak's every move. "People will stare," Sarah whispered. "At you, at us together." Running Creak nodded once. "Let them." He fastened his single remaining piece of jewelry, a hammered silver concho with turquoise inlay, to his shirt. A small dignity. Main Street bustled with morning activity when they arrived. Conversation halted mid-sentence. Heads turned. A woman pulled her child closer as they passed. "It's that Apache," someone muttered. "Got those Miller children with him." "Shameful," another voice added. Running Creak kept his eyes forward, his back straight. The weight of 5 pairs of small footsteps behind him felt strange but grounding. Outside Jameson's general store, he paused. "Wait here," he told the children, but Sarah shook her head. "We're coming too," she insisted. Taking little Rose's hand, the store bell jingled as they entered. Mr. Jameson looked up from his ledger, his friendly shopkeeper's smile vanishing at the sight of them. "We don't serve," he began. "We need food," Running Creak interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. Mr. Jameson's eyes darted between Running Creak and the children. "These Miller kids with you?" "Yes." Running Creak met his gaze steadily. "By what right?" Jameson challenged, hand moving beneath the counter where Running Creak knew a shotgun was kept. Before he could answer, the door opened again. Sheriff Daniels entered, hand resting casually on his holstered pistol. "Heard we had a situation brewing," he said, eyes narrowing. "What's going on here?" "He's helping us, Sheriff." Sarah stepped forward, her small voice clear in the tense silence. "Our pa traded the house to him before they died. We were already there." The lie surprised Running Creak, but he kept his face impassive. "That true, Indian?" Sheriff Daniels asked. Running Creak nodded once, accepting the story as a gift. "Well, Jameson, seems you got customers," the sheriff said, though suspicion lingered in his eyes. "I'll be watching this arrangement." As the sheriff left, Jameson grudgingly moved to serve them. Running Creak reached for the silver concho on his shirt, unfastened it, and placed it on the counter. "What's this?" Jameson asked. "Payment," Running Creak replied. Jameson examined the piece, greed briefly overcoming prejudice. "Fine silver work," he admitted. "Worth a fair bit?" "Need flour, beans, coffee, salt pork," Running Creak listed. "Soap, thread." As Jameson gathered the items, the store door opened again. A woman in a neat blue dress entered, carrying a stack of books. Her eyes widened slightly at the scene before her. "Miss Taylor," Emma breathed, recognition and hope in her voice. "Emma Miller," the woman replied warmly, then looked at Running Creak with open curiosity rather than judgment. "I don't believe we've met." "I'm Elizabeth Taylor, the school teacher." Running Creak nodded respectfully, but offered no words. "These children should be in school." Miss Taylor said directly. "No school for Indian children." Running Creak replied. "These aren't Indian children," she pointed out gently. Sarah moved closer to Running Creak, her small hand finding his rough one. "He's taking care of us now," she said. Miss Taylor's intelligent eyes assessed the situation quickly. "Then perhaps we should discuss their education," she suggested. "And other matters. The town will have questions." Running Creak felt the weight of those unasked questions. From the corner of his eye, he caught William watching this exchange intensely, measuring Miss Taylor's intentions. "Come by the house tomorrow," Running Creak said finally. "We talk then." As they left the store with their supplies, Jameson called after them. "Silver Piece buys more than this," he said grudgingly, holding out a small paper packet. "Sugar candy for the little ones." Running Creak accepted it with solemn dignity. Outside, he handed the packet to Sarah for distribution, watching as the children's faces brightened at this small sweetness. They were halfway home when William finally spoke directly to him. "Why did you let her lie?" "About our PA trading the house?" Running Creak considered the boy carefully. "Sometimes lies protect truth until truth ready to stand alone." William absorbed this, then nodded slowly, the first hint of understanding between them. The silver concho was gone from his shirt, but Running Creak walked taller now, bearing a different kind of weight, one that strangely felt like purpose. The days fell into rhythm, like raindrops on a drum. Running Creak rose before dawn, kindled the fire, and prepared a simple breakfast before the children stirred. Sarah always woke first, helping with the younger ones. William maintained his distance, watching from corners with guarded eyes. A week into their unlikely arrangement, Running Creak knelt in the scraggly yard behind the house, examining the soil. The earth was hard but not dead. It would yield with proper care. "What are you doing?" Emma appeared beside him, her curiosity overcoming shyness. "Reading the ground," Running Creak replied. He picked up a handful of dirt, allowing it to filter through his fingers. "It tells where food can grow." Emma knelt beside him, mimicking his movements. "The ground talks?" A smile, rare as desert rain, briefly crossed Running Creak's face. "To those who listen." That afternoon, he fashioned a rough hoe from a broken wagon wheel rim and hickory branch. With this tool in hand, he began turning the earth, marking rows with string. The children watched from the porch, little Rose sucking her thumb contentedly in Sarah's lap. "You need help," William stated rather than offered. Approaching cautiously, Running Creak handed him the hoe without comment. The boy struggled at first, then found his rhythm. They worked side by side until sunset painted the sky in fierce oranges and purples. "Apache know growing things?" William asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Apache know all ways to find food," Running Creak answered. "Hunt, gather, grow. Land provides if you respect it." The next morning, Running Creak woke to find William already outside, continuing their work. Something shifted between them, not trust yet, but possibility. Inside, domestic challenges mounted. Little Rose wet her bed nightly. Henry refused to wash. Emma cried for her mother when she thought no one was listening. And Sarah tried to be mother, sister, and child all at once, her small shoulders bending under the weight. Running Creak found her one evening scrubbing floors by lamplight, tears streaming silently down her face. "Sleep now," he said, gently taking the brush from her reddened hands. "This weight, it needs doing," she insisted. Running Creak shook his head. "Children need play, need rest." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small carved whistle made of river reed. "My father make this when I was boy, for calling deer." Sarah looked at it with wonder. "Does it work?" "Sometimes deer come, sometimes just good music." He demonstrated a simple melody that sounded like wind through canyon walls. Then he placed it in her palm. "Your turn." Her first attempt produced only a faint wheeze, but her second try yielded a clear, sweet note that made her eyes widen with delight. Little Rose appeared in her nightgown, drawn by the sound. "Me try," she demanded, the most words Running Creak had heard from her. Soon all the children gathered, passing the whistle, filling the shabby house with mismatched notes and, unexpectedly, laughter. That night, Running Creak added a task to their growing routine: music before sleep. The reed whistle passed from hand to hand, each child contributing to their patchwork melody. As days stretched to weeks, other routines formed. Mornings in the garden, afternoons gathering wild foods, Running Creek teaching them which plants were medicine, which were food, which were poison. Evenings by the fire with stories, first only from Sarah about their parents, then cautiously from Running Creek about Apache ways. The house itself slowly transformed. Running Creek repaired the roof with salvaged tin. The children stuffed mattresses with fresh sweet grass. William revealed unexpected skill at fixing broken furniture. Not all days were harmonious. William still challenged, testing boundaries. "Why should we listen to you? You're not our father," he declared during one heated argument about chores. Running Creek merely looked at him steadily. "No, not father. But I am here." The simple truth hung between them. That night, Running Creek sat alone on the porch steps, reed whistle in hand. The moon cast silver light over the garden rows they had planted together. Inside, 5 children slept under a roof he had mended. He played a soft tune, not a deer call, but an old Apache melody about returning home after a long journey. The music drifted into the night, a thread connecting his past to this unexpected present. From inside, little Rose's voice called sleepily, "Play more, Creek." The whistle paused mid-note. It was the first time any of them had called him by name. The knock came just after breakfast. Running Creek opened the door to find Miss Taylor standing there, her usual composed expression replaced by worry. She clutched a leather-bound book to her chest like armor. "May I come in?" Her voice was low, urgent. Running Creek stepped aside. The children looked up from their chores. Sarah mending clothes, William fixing a broken chair leg, the younger ones sorting beans. A family tableau none of them had planned. "Good morning, children." Miss Taylor's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Would you mind if I spoke with Mr. Creek alone?" Running Creek nodded toward the porch. Outside, morning sunlight belied the tension in Miss Taylor's posture. "There's trouble," she said without preamble. "The county officials have received complaints about your arrangement." Running Creek waited, face impassive. Mayor Thornton's wife is leading the charge. She claims it's unnatural for an Indian man to raise white children. Miss Taylor opened the book she carried. Not a book at all, but a ledger. "I sit on the town council. These are the minutes from yesterday's meeting." Running Creek studied the neat handwriting, recognizing few words but understanding the threat in Miss Taylor's tone. "They've contacted Indian Affairs," she continued. "Agent Blackwood will be here within the week. If he decides to force you onto the reservation at San Carlos, the children," Running Creek asked, his voice rough with concern, "orphan train, or split up among local families?" She hesitated. "The Thorntons have expressed interest in taking Emma." Running Creek's hands tightened on the porch railing. "Not happening." The door creaked. William stood there, his face pale. "I heard," he said. "They want to separate us." Running Creek and Miss Taylor exchanged glances. "Yes," she admitted. "I'm afraid so." William looked directly at Running Creek, something new in his eyes. "Will you let them take us?" For weeks, this boy had questioned Running Creek's every move, maintained careful distance. Now he waited for reassurance, for protection. "No." Running Creek's voice was soft but certain as stone. "We'll not let them." William swallowed hard. "Promise?" Running Creek extended his hand, palm up. After a moment's hesitation, William placed his own smaller hand atop it. "Promise," Running Creek said. "We are family now." The word hung between them, unexpected yet somehow right. William nodded once, then returned inside to shield the younger children from worry. "That's the first time he's trusted you." Miss Taylor observed. "First time I make promise to him," Running Creek replied. Miss Taylor sighed. "The law isn't on your side. Judge Hammond is fair, but there's no precedent for this situation." Running Creek took the council ledger from her hands, studying the document that threatened everything. "What we do? First, we need legal standing. I've researched guardianship laws." Miss Taylor's practical nature emerged through her concern. "Judge Hammond holds court on Thursdays. We should speak with him before Agent Blackwood arrives." Running Creek nodded. "Tomorrow we go." When Miss Taylor left, Running Creek remained on the porch, the council ledger heavy in his hands. Inside, he could hear the children's voices. Sarah gently scolding Henry, Emma's soft laughter, little Rose's babbling song. The sounds of a home he never sought, but now could not imagine losing. He thought of San Carlos, the barren reservation where his people withered under government rations and regulations. He had escaped that fate once, living on the margins of both worlds. Now, with 5 children depending on him, running was no longer an option. That night, after the children slept, Running Creek sat at the rickety table with the council ledger open before him. By lamplight, he traced the unfamiliar words with his finger. He had learned basic reading at the mission school in his youth. But these legal terms meant nothing to him. Yet one thing was clear: this ledger represented the white man's power to destroy what they had built. With deliberate movements, Running Creek tore a blank page from the back of the ledger. On it he carefully wrote 5 names: Sarah, William, Emma, Henry, Rose. Beneath them, with greater effort, he added his own, Running Creek, his first written declaration of their connection. He folded the paper and tucked it into his shirt pocket, close to his heart, a talisman against forces gathering against them. In Apache tradition, naming something gave you power over it. In writing these names together, he claimed them as his own. Outside, an owl called, death warning in Apache belief. Running Creek listened, then whistled back defiantly. Not this time. Not this family. Judge Hammond's chambers smelled of leather-bound books and pipe tobacco. Running Creek stood uncomfortably before the massive oak desk, hat in hand, while Miss Taylor explained their situation. The children waited outside on a hard bench under the courthouse clerk's suspicious gaze. Highly unusual case, Judge Hammond murmured, peering at Running Creek over wire-rimmed spectacles. No legal precedent for an Apache adopting white children. They have nowhere else, Miss Taylor pressed. Their parents are dead. No relatives have come forward. The judge pulled thoughtfully at his grey beard. The law typically favors blood relations, or, failing that, families of similar background, similar skin, Running Creek said bluntly. Judge Hammond had the decency to look discomfited. Society has its prejudices, Mr. Creek. I don't make the rules. I merely interpret them. These children need home now, Running Creek insisted. Not when society ready. The judge studied him. Were you educated at a mission school? Your English is quite good for savage. Running Creek finished. I was going to say, for someone living independently, the judge corrected mildly. Running Creek nodded once. 10 years at St. Augustine Mission. Learned reading, writing, Bible stories. Learned white man's ways. He paused. Also learned white man's promises worth little. Instead of taking offense, Judge Hammond chuckled. Fair assessment. He opened a drawer and withdrew a worn leather folder, its surface decorated with intricate stamped designs. This belonged to Judge Wilkins before me. He kept special cases in it, ones that required solutions beyond ordinary law. He placed the folder on the desk. Perhaps yours belongs here. Miss Taylor leaned forward eagerly. Does that mean you'll help us? It means I'll consider all options, the judge replied carefully. But you'll need more than my sympathetic ear. Agent Blackwood follows rules to the letter. Mayor Thornton's wife has considerable influence. And Reverend Parker leads the moral conscience of our community. The Reverend, Miss Taylor breathed. Of course, he could be a powerful ally, Running Creek frowned. Churchman. Why help Apache? Reverend Parker isn't like other preachers, Judge Hammond explained. He spent years with the Quakers before coming west. Believes all people are equal in God's eyes. He patted the special cases folder. Let me think on this. Meanwhile, seek the Reverend's support. Outside, William jumped to his feet as they emerged. What happened? Can we stay together? Running Creek placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Not finished yet. Need more help. They found Reverend Parker tending his small church garden. His weathered hands were deep in soil, not unlike Running Creek's own. He looked up as their shadows fell across him, squinting against the sun. Miss Taylor. And these must be the Miller children. His smile was genuine. I've heard about you all. We need your help. Reverend, Miss Taylor said directly. The Reverend listened intently as she outlined their predicament, occasionally glancing at Running Creek with thoughtful eyes. When she finished, he sat back on his heels. You were at St. Augustine's, he said to Running Creek. Under Father Michaels? Running Creak nodded, surprised. Good man. Believed in understanding, not just conversion. The Reverend stood, brushing dirt from his hands. Come inside, all of you. Let's talk properly. In the small church office, Reverend Parker removed a framed photograph from his wall. A younger version of himself, standing alongside Apache and Navajo children. Mission work near Tucson 20 years ago, he explained. I learned more from those children than they ever learned from me. He handed the photograph to Running Creak, who studied it carefully. You know my people? Some, not enough. The Reverend took back the photograph, his expression solemn. But enough to know that family isn't defined by blood or race. Little Rose, who had been quietly exploring the office, suddenly appeared at Running Creak's side. Without hesitation, she climbed into his lap and nestled against his chest. The simple gesture spoke volumes. Well, said Reverend Parker, his eyes crinkling. That seems clear enough to me. He returned the photograph to its hook on the wall. I'll speak with my congregation Sunday. Not all will be sympathetic, but many will. Mrs. Wilson lost a daughter who was later raised by Pawnee after a raid. Her perspective might sway others. The town council meets Tuesday, Miss Taylor added. If you could speak then, I'll be there, the Reverend promised. As they left, Reverend Parker pressed the photograph into Running Creak's hands. Take this. Return it when you're granted guardianship. Running Creak looked at him questioningly. Call it faith, the Reverend said with a smile. Or collateral. Either way, it gives me reason to visit and check your progress. That night, Running Creak showed the children the photograph, explaining its significance. William studied it intently. There's a boy who looks like me, he said, pointing. Apache boy, Running Creak corrected gently. Yellow horse, maybe? Hard to tell, but he's smiling, William persisted. With the white preacher. Running Creak nodded, understanding the unspoken question. Sometimes different people find way to be family. He looked around at the 5 faces watching him. Like us. The photograph sat propped against their single oil lamp. A glimpse of possibility in sepia tones, different worlds overlapping, making something new. The week before Agent Blackwood's expected arrival passed in a flurry of activity. Running Creak understood white officials. They judged worth by appearances. If they were to have any chance, the house needed to look like a proper home. Need to fix this place, he announced at breakfast. All help. He produced a hammer from his meager possessions, an old cavalry blacksmith's hammer he'd found years ago and kept for its perfect balance. The wooden handle was worn smooth from use, the head nicked but solid. William, you help with roof, he said, handing the boy the hammer. William took it reverently, recognizing the trust implied. Sarah, Emma, clean inside, make curtains from fabric Miss Taylor bring. Henry, gather stones for path. Rose, he paused, considering the smallest child. Rose be sunshine. Make everyone happy while they work. Little Rose beamed at her important assignment. They began with the roof, Running Creak, and William climbing carefully onto the weathered shingles. Below, Sarah organized the younger children like a general commanding troops. See this? Running Creak pointed to a rotted section. Water enemy of house. Like cavalry to Apache, always find way in if you're not watchful. William nodded seriously, absorbing both the practical lesson and the rare glimpse into Running Creak's past. Hold nail like this, Running Creak demonstrated. Hit straight down. Think of nail like enemy scout, one good hit better than many bad ones. By midday, neighbors had noticed their activity. Mrs. Wilson appeared with a basket of biscuits and a bundle of fabric scraps for curtains. Her husband followed reluctantly with a box of old tools. Thought you might need these, he muttered. Avoiding Running Creak's eyes, thank you, Running Creak said simply, accepting both the tools and the tentative olive branch they represented. As the day progressed, more townspeople stopped by, some from curiosity, others with genuine offers of help. The Reverend arrived with 2 church members and a wagon of lumber. Miss Taylor brought 2 older students who helped Sarah organize the interior. News travels fast, she explained, watching the impromptu community effort with satisfaction. By sunset, the roof no longer leaked, the windows had curtains, and a stone path led to the front door. Inside, the floors gleamed from scrubbing. and the walls had been whitewashed with lime from the Reverend's garden shed. As helpers departed, Running Creak stood in the yard. The children gathered around him, surveying their work. "Looks like a real home now," Sarah said proudly. "It is real home," Running Creak corrected gently. "Was real home before. Now just looks better for white eyes." That evening, after a simple supper, Running Creak sat on the porch steps, repairing the hammer's loose handle. William joined him, watching the methodical work. "My pa had a hammer," he said suddenly. "Not as good as yours." Running Creak nodded, letting the boy lead the conversation. He tried to fix things, but they always broke again. William picked at a splinter in the porch step. "Ma said he was better at breaking than fixing." Running Creak continued working, sensing more to come. "He drank a lot," William finally said. "That's why we were so poor. He'd spend money at the saloon instead of buying food." Running Creak paused, looking at the boy. "Hard thing, when father not strong." William's eyes welled with tears. "I didn't even cry when he died." "Is that terrible?" "No," Running Creak said softly. "Not terrible, just true." He held the hammer between them. "Good tool shows work of hands. Good father shows work of heart." They sat in silence as dusk deepened. Then Running Creak held out the hammer. "Your turn to fix handle." "I watch." Inside, Sarah helped little Rose wash up for bed. Through the window, Emma and Henry could be seen carefully watering their newly planted garden. Ordinary family moments that weeks ago would have seemed impossible. Late that night, after the children slept, Running Creak took the now-repaired hammer and gently hung it on a nail by the door. Its first permanent home in decades, like its owner. On the wall beside it, he hung a small mirror Sarah had found and cleaned. He studied his reflection, something he rarely did. The same weathered face, the same dark eyes that had seen too much, but something different now in their depths, purpose, belonging. Behind him in the mirror, he could see the sleeping shapes of the children, their rhythmic breathing a counterpoint to the night sounds outside. His free hand went instinctively to his shirt pocket, where the paper bearing their names still rested. The hammer and the mirror caught the moonlight, tools of transformation. One for the house, one for seeing himself anew, both revealing change that went far deeper than appearance. Agent Blackwood's visit had gone better than expected. The neat house, the flourishing garden, and most importantly, the obvious bond between Running Creak and the children had given the agent pause. He'd left without making immediate demands, promising only to consider all factors in his report. In the breathing space that followed, Miss Taylor broached a subject Running Creak had been avoiding. "The children should be in school," she said one afternoon, seated at their kitchen table. "Education is their best chance for a future." Running Creak's face remained impassive, but his hands stilled on the rabbit he was skinning for supper. School meant white ways, white values. Mission school memories rose unbidden. The sting of the switch when he spoke Apache, the scrubbing of skin that would never be white enough. "They learn here," he said finally. "Garden, cooking, hunting, reading with you." Miss Taylor nodded. "Important skills. But there's more they need. Mathematics, history, science." Sarah, listening from the doorway, stepped forward. "I'd like to go back to school, Creak. I was good at figures before." "Before everything happened," Emma nodded eagerly beside her. "Me too. I miss books." Henry bounced on his toes. "Can I go too?" Only William remained silent, his expression guarded. That evening, after the younger children slept, Running Creak found William sitting on the porch steps, whittling a stick with determined focus. "You not want school," Running Creak stated. Settling beside him, William's knife paused. "The other boys used to laugh at my patched clothes. Called my pa a drunk." The knife resumed its rhythmic scraping. "School's just another place to not belong." Running Creak understood this better than the boy knew. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a carved wooden fox, its details worn smooth from handling. "My first day at mission school. I hide this in my pocket," he said, turning the fox in the moonlight. "Teacher find it, throw in fire. Say it pagan idol." He closed his fingers around the carving. "I make new one hide better." William looked up, surprised. "You went to school? A white school?" Running Creak nodded. 10 years. Learn much. Some good, some bad. He handed the fox to William. This I make last day there, reminder. Of what? William asked, turning the small carving in his hands. That they can teach words, numbers, but not who I am inside. Running Creak tapped his chest. Apache here, no matter what they say, what clothes I wear. William studied the fox, its clever face and alert ears captured in simple lines. Did it help, having this? Yes, when words hurt, when I feel lost, I touch fox. Remember who I am, William handed it back. Running Creak closed the boy's fingers around it instead. You keep now. For school, William's eyes widened. But it's yours. Your special thing, now yours, Running Creak said simply. Maybe help you remember who you are when words hurt. The next morning, Running Creak walked to the schoolhouse alone. He stood outside the white clapboard building, watching children enter. Their laughter, their casual cruelty to those who differed, their unthinking privilege, all painfully familiar. Yet Miss Taylor greeted each child by name, her kindness consistent. She noticed him and approached, respecting his silence. You're worried, she observed. Running Creak nodded once. School teach them to be ashamed of Apache guardian. Miss Taylor considered this honestly. Some children might tease. Some parents might complain. She met his eyes directly. But education also teaches questioning, thinking for oneself. The Miller children already know there's more than one way to be family. Running Creak watched a father bid his son goodbye with a casual tousle of hair. Such easy certainty in their connection, their shared place in the world. I visit first, he decided. See how it is now. Then choose. Miss Taylor welcomed him into her classroom that afternoon. He sat in the back, a giant among the child-sized desks. He noted the maps on walls, the books lined neatly on shelves, tools for understanding a world larger than this town. He watched Miss Taylor teach, her passion for learning evident in every gesture, different from the stern mission teachers of his youth. When she asked a question, she listened to each answer with genuine interest, even the wrong ones. Most importantly, he watched the children's faces, alive with curiosity, with discovery. Even those from families he knew disapproved of him seemed momentarily free of inherited prejudice as they lost themselves in learning. That evening, the family gathered around the kitchen table. 5 expectant faces looked to him for decision. Tomorrow, Running Creak announced, Sarah, Emma, Henry go to school. The 3 erupted in excitement. William looked down at his hands, relief and disappointment warring in his expression. William, Running Creak continued, you and me, we go to reservation tomorrow. The boy's head snapped up. What? Why? Visit my cousin Two Hawks. He teach Apache words, Apache ways. You learn both schools, white and Apache. Then you choose which days for which school. William's face transformed with understanding. Running Creak wasn't abandoning him to white education, but offering him something more, a balance, a choice. That night, Running Creak saw William before bed, the carved fox resting on the boy's windowsill, watching over him, a guardian of identity in a world that demanded conformity. The schoolhouse door burst open as children poured out at day's end. Running Creak waited beneath the cottonwood tree, a quiet sentinel. Sarah and Emma emerged, chatting with other girls, their integration seemingly effortless. Henry followed, proudly carrying a paper with a large red star, but William was last, his eyes swollen, shirt torn at the collar. Running Creak straightened, alert to danger. What happened? William ducked his head. Nothing. But Sarah hurried to them, her face flushed with indignation. Billy Thornton called William Indian lover and said his family lives with a savage. William punched him, Running Creak sighed inwardly. He had expected this, just not so soon. Teacher, see? He asked. Miss Taylor was helping the little ones, Sarah explained. It happened behind the woodshed. At home, Running Creak examined William's face. The eye would blacken, but nothing was broken. As he applied a cool cloth, a horse approached outside. Sheriff Daniels dismounted heavily. There's been trouble, he announced without greeting. Running Creak nodded. School fight. Already know. Not just that, the sheriff said grimly. Mayor Thornton wants the boy punished for attacking his son. And there's talk of a school board meeting about whether your children should attend at all. William's shoulders slumped. Running Creak kept his hand steady on the boy's shoulder. What you say happen? Running Creak asked William directly. William looked between the sheriff and Running Creak, then straightened. Billy said my real pa was probably glad to die, so he wouldn't have to see his son living with a savage. Said I'd grow up to be a wild Indian too. His voice wavered. I hit him first. But I'm not sorry. Sheriff Daniels shifted uncomfortably. Boys fight. Happens all the time. But this situation is complicated. Because Apache, Running Creak stated flatly. Because tensions are already high, the sheriff corrected, though without conviction. There's a school board meeting tomorrow. You should both be there. He turned to leave, then hesitated. Might want to teach the boy to block better if he's going to throw punches. That shiner's impressive. After the sheriff left, Running Creak sat William at the kitchen table. The other children watched wide-eyed as he opened a small pouch kept among his few possessions. From it he removed a battered metal badge, U.S. Army Scout. Where did you get that? William asked, momentarily forgetting his throbbing eye. I earn, Running Creak said simply. Apache Scouts help Army find renegade bands, track water sources, prevent ambush. You help the Army fight other Apaches? William looked confused, betrayed even. Not so simple, Running Creak replied. Some Apache bands raid, kill. Some want peace. I choose path between, help stop those who bring harm, protect those who want peace. He placed the badge on the table. For this, white soldiers call me traitor. Apache call me white man's dog. Sarah approached cautiously. Why did you do it then? To survive. To understand white man's world. Running Creak's finger traced the tarnished metal. Learn when to fight, when to wait. When to speak, when to be silent. He looked at William. Fighting has place, but must choose battles carefully. But they insulted you, William protested. They called you savage. Words only hurt if you believe them, Running Creak said. Do you think I savage? William shook his head emphatically. Then why fight over lie? Running Creak held up the badge. This remember me, respect not from fists but from actions. How you live each day. That evening, Running Creak taught the children basic Apache defensive moves. How to block, evade, protect oneself without attacking. Even little Rose participated, giggling as she practiced slipping away from William's gentle holds. Fighting not first choice, Running Creak explained. But if must fight, fight smart. Protect self, protect family, then walk away with dignity. Later, William found Running Creak on the porch, staring at the scout badge in his palm. I'm still not sorry I hit him, William admitted. But I understand what you were saying. Running Creak nodded. Tomorrow at meeting, they expect angry Apache, scary guardian. We show them something different. What? Dignity, self-control. Running Creak tucked the badge away. And truth. The school board meeting was tense, the small room crowded with parents and officials. Mayor Thornton's wife sat rigidly beside her husband, their son's face bearing a bruise far less impressive than William's. When called upon, William stood straight, his voice clear despite his nervousness. I apologize for hitting Billy, he said, exactly as Running Creak had coached him. It was wrong to solve words with fists. He paused, then added with quiet conviction, but I'm not sorry for defending my family. Running Creak is teaching us to be honorable, and honor means standing up for the truth. The truth is, he's a good man and a good father to us. A murmur went through the crowd. Miss Taylor's face shone with pride. Even the sheriff nodded slightly. The scout badge remained hidden in Running Creak's pocket throughout the meeting, a private reminder of battles chosen carefully, of standing between two worlds with dignity intact. The stagecoach arrived in a cloud of dust on Wednesday morning, disgorging travelers stiff from the long journey. Among them stood a man whose fine clothes and imperious manner immediately set him apart from the usual drifters and salesmen. Running Creak noticed him from across the street, where he was purchasing supplies with Henry. Something in the stranger's calculating gaze as he surveyed the town raised ancient warnings in Running Creak's mind. That afternoon, Sheriff Daniels appeared at their door, the well-dressed stranger at his side. This here's Mr. Emmett Miller, the sheriff announced uncomfortably. Says he's kin to your children. The stranger's eyes narrowed at the word your, but his smile remained fixed. Uncle Emmett, actually. Their father's cousin from Boston. Running Creek stood immobile in the doorway. His instinct to block this man's entry overwhelming. Children have no uncle, he stated flatly. Emmett Miller produced a leather-bound family Bible from his valise, opening it to display a family tree inscribed on the frontispiece. His manicured finger traced the connection. I'm afraid they do, he said smoothly. And I've come to claim them. Within hours, the town buzzed with the news. Judge Hammond called an emergency meeting in his chambers the following morning. Running Creek spent a sleepless night. The children huddled close, as if physical proximity could prevent separation. In the judge's chambers, Emmett Miller presented his case with practiced eloquence. These poor children have suffered tremendously, he intoned. First losing their parents, then being forced to live with, well, he gestured vaguely toward Running Creek. While I'm sure the arrangement was well-intentioned, it's hardly appropriate. I can provide them a proper home in Boston, with the finest schools and opportunities. Judge Hammond frowned. Mr. Creek has been caring for these children for nearly 3 months now, with no complaint from authorities. 3 months compared to blood kinship. Miller raised an eyebrow. Surely the law is clear on this matter, the judge sighed. Typically, yes. But this case has unusual circumstances. I'll need to consider carefully. In the meantime, the children remain with Mr. Creek. Miller's confident smile faltered briefly before returning. Of course, Your Honor, I respect the legal process. He turned to Running Creek. Perhaps I might visit the children, to become acquainted with my nieces and nephews. Running Creek had no choice but to agree. That evening, Uncle Emmett arrived bearing gifts, candy for the little ones, a lace handkerchief for Sarah, a penknife for William. His charm was practiced, his stories of Boston enthralling. Only Running Creek noticed how his eyes kept drifting to the land outside, assessing. After Uncle Emmett departed, Sarah approached Running Creek, clutching a small object in her hand, a brass button embossed with an anchor. I found this while cleaning last week, she said, her voice low. It was under the floorboard in Pa's room, along with these. She produced several crumpled letters from her pocket. Running Creek examined the button, then the letters. His reading was slow but sufficient to understand their content. Demands for money, veiled threats, all signed, Your cousin, Emmett. Pa never mentioned an Uncle Emmett, Sarah continued. But these letters, he was asking Pa for money, said he had gambling debts. Her voice hardened. He's not here for us. I don't know why he's really come, but it's not for us. Running Creek nodded slowly. Button from sailor coat, he observed. Pa said he once had to rescue someone from sailors at the docks. He took this as a reminder never to gamble. Sarah's eyes were fierce with memory. It was Uncle Emmett. Pa paid his debts, but kept this to remember the cost. Running Creek closed his hand around the brass button, its weight suddenly significant. Could you find this? Need to learn more about Uncle. The next day, while the children were at school, Running Creek sought out Two Hawks, his Apache cousin, who occasionally worked as a scout for passing cattle drives. Need eyes on this man? Running Creek explained, showing him the brass button. Something wrong in his story. Two Hawks nodded. I watch. Town thinks I'm just drunk Indian. No one notices me. For 3 days, Two Hawks shadowed Emmett Miller, reporting back each night. The picture that emerged was troubling. He meets with land speculator from railroad, Two Hawks revealed. Asks many questions about water rights, property boundaries. Visits saloon, talks of investment opportunity, once he has legal claim to Miller land. Running Creek turned the brass button in his fingers. Its anchor symbol now seeming like a weight, threatening to drag them all down. He not want children, Running Creek concluded. Want land, but why? Sarah asked, listening from the doorway. Our place isn't worth much. Running Creek considered the question. Land itself maybe not. Something else valuable. That night, Running Creek slipped into town and stood outside the hotel where Uncle Emmett stayed. Through the window, he could see the man hunched over maps spread across his bed. Even from a distance, Running Creek recognized the topography of their land, and the surrounding area. The brass button felt heavy in his pocket, a small but damning piece of evidence connecting this stranger to a past none of the children knew about. Like the anchor embossed on its surface, it might be enough to sink Uncle Emmett's claims. But first, they needed to understand what made their seemingly worthless land suddenly so valuable. Running Creak closed his fingers around the button, feeling its edges dig into his palm. A reminder of debts unpaid, of a man who would abandon family once and would likely do so again. The children deserved to know the truth about both the uncle who sought to claim them and the land they called home. "We leave before sunrise," Running Creak announced at supper. "Pack one blanket each. Wear strong shoes." The children exchanged glances, questions bubbling. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked. "To mountains. Learn Apache way. Find answers." Running Creek's tone left no room for debate. They set out in pre-dawn darkness, the town still sleeping behind them. Running Creek led them eastward, toward rocky hills rising from the desert floor. Little Rose rode on his shoulders, already half asleep. The others followed single file, excitement mixing with apprehension. By mid-morning, they reached a narrow canyon. Running Creek stopped at its entrance, producing a handful of ochre from his pocket. With practiced movements, he drew a line across his forehead, then gestured for the children to do the same. "Shows respect to mountain spirits," he explained. "We ask permission to enter their home." William went first, accepting the mark without hesitation. The others followed, even Sarah overcoming her initial reluctance. Thus adorned, they entered the canyon, its walls rising higher with each step, sunlight filtering through in golden shafts. "Listen," Running Creek instructed. "Land speaks if you hear." They walked in silence, broken only by lizards skittering across rocks and hawks crying overhead. Running Creek stopped occasionally, pointing out plants and their uses, this one for fever, that one for cleaning wounds, another that could be eaten in times of hunger. By midday, they reached a small spring bubbling from rock. Running Creek knelt, producing a weathered wooden flute from his pack, different from the reed whistle he'd given Sarah months before. This one was longer, adorned with carved symbols and feathers tied to one end. "Grandfather's flute," he said, handling it reverently. "Played to bring rain in drought times, to speak to ancestors, to heal broken spirits." He raised it to his lips and played a hauntingly simple melody that echoed off the canyon walls. The children sat transfixed as the mournful notes danced around them. When he finished, Running Creek passed the flute to William. "Your turn." William looked alarmed. "I don't know how. Flute knows. You just breathe life into it." Hesitantly, William placed his lips where Running Creek's had been. His first attempt produced only a hollow whisper, but Running Creek guided his fingers over the holes, and suddenly a clear note emerged. William's eyes widened in surprise. Each child took a turn, the flute's voice changing with each new breath, Sarah's notes precise and careful, Emma's flowing like water, Henry's bold and erratic, Little Rose's barely audible but somehow complete. "Flute shows how spirit sounds," Running Creek explained. "Each different." All true. After eating a simple meal, Running Creek led them to a small cave in the canyon wall. Inside, ancient handprints decorated the stone. Small and large, a family from centuries past. "Apache ancestors," he said. "They shelter here too. Leave marks so we remember they lived, loved, protected their children." He produced a small bag of charcoal and mixed it with water from the spring. "We leave our marks too. Show we are family now." One by one, they pressed their handprints beside those of the ancestors, Running Creek's broad palm, Sarah's slender fingers, William's determined grip, Emma's artistic flourish, Henry's eager smudge, Little Rose's tiny star. "Now we always here," Running Creek said, "even when gone from this place." As afternoon shadows lengthened, they climbed to a plateau overlooking the desert. Running Creek pointed to their distant house, barely visible. "What you see?" he asked. "Home," William said immediately. "Yes, but what else?" They looked harder, noticing the pattern of vegetation, greener near their property, following a line down from the hills. A stream. Sarah ventured. Underground, maybe? Running Creek nodded, pleased. Water beneath ground, precious in desert. Is that what Uncle Emmett wants? William asked. Perhaps. Many reasons to want land. Water most valuable. As sunset painted the sky crimson, Running Creek removed the flute from his pack again. This time he handed it directly to William. For you, he said. To remember this day, William's eyes widened. But it's your grandfather's, now your grandfather's too. Running Creek touched the boy's chest. Apache way passes through heart, not just blood. William clutched the flute, understanding the gift's significance. As night fell, they wrapped in blankets beneath stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. Running Creek told ancient stories. How Coyote stole fire, how the first people emerged from the underworld, how the stars were scattered by Raven. These stories old as land, he said. Now yours too. Later, when the children slept, Running Creek sat awake, watching over them. The brass button from Uncle Emmett lay in his palm, a cold reminder of the threat awaiting them at home. But beside it now lay something stronger, the knowledge of who they were becoming together. Their handprints mingling with ancestors on canyon walls, their breath giving voice to an ancient flute. Tomorrow they would return to face Uncle Emmett. Tonight, under Apache stars, they were simply family, gathering strength from older, deeper truths than any written in white man's law books. The town hall buzzed with tension as residents filed in for the emergency council meeting. Running Creek entered last, the children flanking him like a small honor guard. William carried grandfather's flute, tucked securely in his belt, drawing courage from its presence. At the front table sat Mayor Thornton, Sheriff Daniels, Judge Hammond, and 3 council members. Uncle Emmett lounged confidently nearby, his city clothes and gold watch chain gleaming in the lamplight. "This meeting will come to order," Mayor Thornton announced, gaveling the murmuring crowd to silence. "We face an unprecedented situation regarding the Miller orphans." Running Creek stood tall at the back wall, ignoring the stares. Two Hawks had slipped in unnoticed, positioning himself near the side exit. Miss Taylor nodded encouragingly from her seat. Uncle Emmett rose first, adjusting his vest. "Honorable council members, this matter is straightforward. I am these children's closest living relative. While I appreciate the temporary arrangement that's kept them sheltered, it's time they returned to proper society." His smile tightened. "With family," Judge Hammond leaned forward. "Mr. Miller, you've presented documentation of your relationship, but questions remain. Why come forward now, months after their parents' passing? Sadly, I only recently received word of their tragedy. Boston is quite distant." Uncle Emmett's practiced sorrow faltered as he added, "Once I learned, I came immediately to claim what's mine." Sarah flinched at the phrasing. Running Creek placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Mayor Thornton nodded sympathetically. "Blood ties must take precedence. It's only natural. If I may," Reverend Parker interjected from the audience, "there's more to family than blood. These children have formed a bond with Mr. Creek." Mrs. Thornton sniffed audibly. "An Indian raising white children? It's unnatural, is it?" Miss Taylor stood. "I've observed these children daily. They're healthier, happier, and more secure than when their parents were alive." She met Mrs. Thornton's glare. "Some might find that uncomfortable, but facts remain facts." Uncle Emmett's smile never wavered. "No one questions that the savage, Mr. Creek, has been adequate temporarily. But these children deserve advantages only proper society can provide." From her seat, Mrs. Wilson, the elderly woman whose daughter had been raised by Pawnee, spoke up. "And what advantages might those be, Mr. Miller?" "Your fine Boston manners. Or perhaps your gambling habits." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Uncle Emmett's confident demeanor cracked slightly. "I don't know what you're implying." "Running Creek," Judge Hammond interrupted. "You've remained silent. What do you wish to say?" All eyes turned to the Apache. Running Creek reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a brass key, old and tarnished. "This key found in Miller House," he said, his deep voice filling the room. "Hidden under floorboard with letters from him." He nodded toward Uncle Emmett. "Letters asking for money, threatening, not family love letters." Uncle Emmett flushed. "Those are private family matters. Key fits strong box." Running Creek continued steadily. Inside, Miller father keep record of underground spring on property. Map showing water runs beneath land. Valuable in desert, 2 hawks stepped forward. I follow this man 3 days. He meet with railroad men. Talk about water rights, not children. The room erupted in voices. Judge Hammond gavelled for order. These are serious allegations, he said, peering at Uncle Emmett over his spectacles. Preposterous. Uncle Emmett sputtered. I'm here for the children. Their welfare is my only concern. Running Creek held up the key. Then why you ask about property lines first day? Why study maps at night? Why meet with land speculators? Uncle Emmett's face hardened. You've been spying on me? Protecting family, Running Creek corrected. Apache way. The mayor cleared his throat. Regardless of motives, the law is clear on matters of guardianship. Blood relatives, what about children's wishes? Running Creek interrupted. They're not property like land. They people with hearts, minds. Judge Hammond considered this. An unusual approach, but not without merit. Sarah, as the eldest, would you care to speak? Sarah stepped forward, trembling but determined. Uncle Emmett is a stranger to us. Running Creek has been our protector, our teacher, our father in all the ways that matter. William joined her. I never met Uncle Emmett before last week, but I know Running Creek would die protecting us. His hand drifted to the flute at his belt. He's taught us both Apache ways and white ways. How to be strong but kind. How to be honorable. Emma and Henry nodded vigorously beside them. Little Rose simply slipped her hand into Running Creek's, the gesture speaking volumes. Uncle Emmett's smile turned cold. Children don't decide such matters. The law serves justice, Judge Hammond interrupted. And justice requires we consider all factors. The key gleamed dully in Running Creek's palm as he held it up. This key unlocked truth about Miller Land. Also unlocked truth about this man's heart. He looked at Uncle Emmett. Empty of love for children. Full of greed for land. A sudden silence fell as the simplicity of his words sank in. I move. We continue present guardianship arrangement pending further investigation. Reverend Parker said firmly. Judge Hammond nodded. I second that motion. All in favor? Hands rose throughout the room, not all but enough. Uncle Emmett's face darkened with fury. This isn't over, he hissed as he pushed past Running Creek toward the exit. No, Running Creek agreed quietly, closing his fingers around the key. Not over yet. Emma's cough began as nothing, a slight rasp at breakfast, dismissed as dust from the dry autumn wind. By afternoon, her cheeks flushed crimson against too pale skin. By nightfall, she burned with fever, each breath a struggle that rattled her small chest. Running Creek recognized the sound immediately. The same wet, desperate gasping that had filled the reservation during the epidemic that claimed his wife and daughter years before. Pneumonia, the stealer of breath. The child taker, Sarah Heatwater, he instructed, his voice calm despite the fear gripping his heart. William, ride for doctor. Henry, watch Rose. As William mounted their only horse, a gift from the Reverend, Running Creek carried Emma to her bed. Her body felt impossibly light, a bird with hollow bones. Her eyes, usually bright with curiosity, now glazed with fever. Hurts, she whispered, one hand pressed to her chest. I know, little one, Running Creek replied, smoothing damp hair from her forehead. Help coming. From a chest beneath his bed, Running Creek retrieved a worn deerskin bundle tied with sinew. Inside lay his most precious possession, a small clay bowl painted with lightning patterns, blackened from years of ceremonial use. His mother's healing bowl, passed through generations of medicine women before finding its way to her only son. Running Creek filled the bowl with water, then added dried herbs from a pouch at his belt, sage for cleansing, willow bark for fever, mullein for breath. As the water darkened, he began to sing softly, an ancient Apache healing song that called to the spirits of earth and sky. Doc Simmons arrived an hour later, black bag in hand, William hovering anxiously behind him. The doctor's examination was brief, his frown deepening as he listened to Emma's labored breathing. Pneumonia, he confirmed. Bad case. I'll leave laudanum for the pain, but... He hesitated, eyes flicking to the clay bowl steaming beside the bed. What's that? Medicine, Running Creek answered simply. The doctor's mouth tightened. I'd stick to proven remedies if I were you. That looks like Indian mumbo-jumbo. Both medicines help, Running Creek said firmly. Apache healed pneumonia many generations. Doc Simmons shrugged. Your funeral. Or rather hers, he packed his bag. Keep her warm. Liquids if she'll take them. Send word if she worsens, though there's little more I can do. After the doctor left, Miss Taylor arrived with clean linens and broth. Her capable hands helped bathe Emma's burning limbs with cool cloths. She watched without comment as Running Creek continued his ministrations with the clay bowl, periodically spooning small amounts of the herbal infusion between Emma's cracked lips. My grandmother used herbal remedies, Miss Taylor said finally. Doctors scoffed, but her patients often recovered when others didn't. Running Creek nodded, grateful for her understanding. Word spread quickly through town. By morning, a small crowd had gathered outside, some offering help, others merely curious about the Indian healing. Among them stood Uncle Emmett, his expression calculating as he spoke with Mayor Thornton. Clearly the savage can't provide proper medical care, he was saying loudly. This tragedy proves my point, Sarah overheard from the doorway, her exhausted face hardening. You're hoping she dies, aren't you? To strengthen your case? Uncle Emmett flinched at the direct accusation. I'm merely concerned about appropriate care. Running Creek hasn't left her side all night, Sarah shot back. Where were you when we had scarlet fever last year? When Pa was too drunk to fetch medicine and Ma was too sick to stand. The gathered townspeople fell silent, uncomfortable, with this glimpse into the Miller children's previous life. Inside, the battle continued. Emma's fever spiked dangerously high, her breathing growing more labored. Running Creek maintained his vigil, alternating Western medicine with traditional remedies, songs with silent prayer. On the third day, Mrs. Wilson arrived, with her own contribution, a knitted prayer shawl that her Pawnee daughter had sent her. My girl was deathly ill once, she told Running Creek. The tribe's medicine woman used a bowl like yours. Saved her life when the army doctor had given up. She draped the shawl over Emma's bed. 2 healing ways are stronger than one. That night, as Running Creek prepared another infusion in the clay bowl, Emma's eyes fluttered open, truly aware for the first time in days. Your bowl has pictures, she whispered hoarsely. Running Creek smiled, relief flooding through him at this small sign of improvement. Lightning marks. Power for healing. Pretty, Emma murmured, her fingers weakly tracing the pattern on the bowl's rim. Can you teach me? When you're stronger, he promised. Many things to teach you. Emma's lips curved slightly. Creek? Her voice was barely audible. Yes, I saw your wife and daughter. Her eyes drifted closed again, while I was sleeping. They said, to tell you. They're proud. Running Creek's hands stilled on the bowl, its ancient clay suddenly warm beyond the heat of the infusion. How could Emma know of his loss? He had never spoken of it to the children. They said they sent us to you, Emma continued dreamily, to heal your heart while you healed our family. Tears, rare as desert rain, slipped down Running Creek's weathered cheeks. He placed one hand on the clay bowl, feeling the connection to his ancestors, to his lost family, to this new family the Creator had sent him. By morning, Emma's fever broke. Her breathing, while still labored, no longer carried death's rattle. When Doc Simmons returned, his surprise was evident. Well, I'll be damned, he muttered, listening to her lungs. The girl's turning the corner. Running Creek said nothing, simply cradling the ancient bowl in his calloused hands. Some healing went deeper than medicine men, white or Apache, could explain. Emma's recovery progressed steadily, her strength returning like spring after a harsh winter. Running Creek maintained his vigilant care, but as immediate danger passed, his thoughts turned to Uncle Emmett's persistent threat. The temporary reprieve granted by the town council would not last forever. William had taken to spending evenings with 2 hawks, learning tracking and Apache hunting methods. He returned one twilight, excitement brightening his usually solemn face. Creek, I found something strange near the dry creek bed, he announced, breathless from running. Come see? Running Creek followed William to the eastern edge of their property, where a seasonal wash cut through the land. The boy pointed to exposed earth along the bank. "Look at the soil layers," William said, pointing to a subtle difference Running Creek had taught him to recognize. "It's damp here, even though it hasn't rained in weeks." Running Creek knelt, examining the earth with practiced hands. "Good eyes," he praised. "Water close to surface here. That's what Uncle Emmett wants, isn't it?" "The water under our land," Running Creek nodded. "In desert, water more valuable than gold." They returned to the house, where Sarah helped Emma sit on the porch to enjoy the sunset. Running Creek studied their land with new awareness, noting how the vegetation grew greener along a subtle line from the hills to their property. Miller father must have known, he mused. Why else hide map in strongbox? Pa was digging a well before he got sick, Henry volunteered suddenly. Said it would make us rich someday. Running Creek looked sharply at the boy. "Where?" Henry led them to a shed behind the house. Inside, beneath burlap sacks and broken tools, lay a half-completed well shaft, its wooden collar now rotting from disuse. He worked on it at night, Sarah remembered. Said it was our secret treasure. "We thought he was just, drinking talk." Running Creek examined the abandoned project. The shaft extended about 8 feet down, showing signs of careful, methodical work, surprising given what he knew of the elder Miller's reputation. That night, after the children slept, Running Creek returned to the shed. By lantern light, he cleared debris from the well shaft and climbed down to examine it more closely. The digger had followed the water signs with surprising skill, angling the shaft to intercept the underground flow. Near the bottom, something glinted in the dirt wall. Running Creek brushed away soil to reveal a metal object embedded in the clay, a small silver pendant shaped like a water droplet, its surface engraved with Spanish words. Running Creek pried it carefully from its earthen bed. Though he couldn't read the inscription, he recognized its significance, an old Spanish water claim marker. Such markers were left by early explorers to denote discovered water sources, often leading to later legal claims. The pendant was cool against his palm, its weight belying its small size. If the Miller father had found this while digging, he would have understood its legal importance. A Spanish water claim predated all current property lines. Whoever possessed proof of the claim owned the water rights, regardless of current land ownership. At breakfast, Running Creek placed the silver pendant in the center of the table. "What is it?" Emma asked. "Well enough now to join them for meals." "Spanish water marker," Running Creek explained. "Very old, very important." William picked it up, turning it to catch the morning light. "What does it say?" Miss Taylor, visiting to check on Emma, leaned over to examine it. "It's Spanish. Por la gracia de Dios, agua vida. By God's grace, water of life. This proof water rights belong to land," Running Creek explained. "Spanish claims oldest, strongest in law." Sarah's eyes widened with understanding. "So if Uncle Emmett gets our land, he gets water rights for entire valley," Running Creek confirmed. "Could control all farms, ranches that need water. That's why he wants us," William said bitterly. "Not because we're family." "Because of this," Miss Taylor frowned thoughtfully. "Judge Hammond needs to see this. It changes everything legally." That afternoon, Judge Hammond examined the pendant in his chambers, his expression grave. "This is significant evidence," he confirmed. "Spanish water claims supersede all others under territorial law. Whoever owns the land where this was found controls the water rights for the entire watershed." Miller father knew. Running Creek asked. "Must have," the judge nodded. "Explains why he began a well despite his other troubles. Can Uncle Emmett still take the children?" Sarah asked anxiously. Judge Hammond sighed. "The pendant doesn't affect custody directly, but it does establish a clear motive for Mr. Miller's sudden interest in your welfare." Running Creek closed his hand around the silver pendant. "Need to finish well," he decided. "Prove water exists. Make legal claims stronger." That night, under cover of darkness, Running Creek and William returned to the well shaft. With the silver pendant secured in Running Creek's pocket, they began clearing debris. continuing the work the miller father had abandoned. "If we find water," William asked, pausing to wipe sweat from his brow, "does that mean we get to stay together? That Uncle Emmett can't take us?" Running Creek wished he could offer certainty. Instead, he gave honesty. "No guarantee, but gives us fighting chance." The silver pendant seemed to pulse against his skin, a small, ancient thing now central to their future. Like the children themselves, it had been buried, forgotten, yet held unexpected power once brought into the light. Judge Hammond's summons arrived with morning's first light. The custody hearing would commence in 3 days. The official document bearing the territorial court seal felt like both promise and threat in Running Creek's hands. "Judge set hearing date," he announced at breakfast, his voice deliberately steady for the children's sake. "Thursday morning," Sarah's spoon clattered against her bowl. "So soon." "Uncle Emmett must have pushed for it," William said, his jaw tightening. "The well isn't finished yet." Running Creek folded the summons carefully. "We keep digging, day and night, for 48 hours. They worked in shifts, Running Creek and William trading places with Two Hawks and Henry, driving the shaft deeper toward the water they could sense but hadn't yet reached. The women of the house kept a constant supply of food and coffee flowing to the diggers. On the evening before the hearing, Running Creek sat at the kitchen table with Miss Taylor and Reverend Parker, reviewing their limited legal options. The children had been sent to bed, though Running Creek suspected they were listening from the hallway. "The law favors blood relations," Miss Taylor said, her usual optimism dimmed. "Without the well completed, the pendant alone isn't enough to prove Uncle Emmett's motives. Perhaps character witnesses," Reverend Parker suggested. "Mrs. Wilson, myself, others who've seen your care for the children." Running Creek nodded, grateful but unconvinced. From his pocket he withdrew a small object, a battered pocket watch with a broken crystal and tarnished case. "Miller father's watch," he explained, placing it on the table. "Found in well shaft." Miss Taylor picked it up carefully. "It's stopped. Looks like it's been in the earth for months." Running Creek nodded. "Time of death. Miller father died at well, not in bed, as children told." A small gasp from the hallway confirmed his suspicion about eavesdroppers. "What are you suggesting?" Reverend Parker asked, leaning forward. "Not sure yet," Running Creek admitted. "But watch stopped at midnight. Strange time for well digging unless desperate or afraid." Miss Taylor turned the timepiece over, examining its tarnished back. "There's an inscription. To J.M. Water brings life, greed brings death." Running Creek's eyes narrowed. "J.M. Jonathan Miller," came Sarah's voice as she stepped from the shadows, abandoning pretense. "Our father, who gave watch?" Running Creek asked gently. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "Pa always had it, but he never wore it. Kept it in his strongbox with the key and the brass button." Running Creek took the watch back, its weight suddenly significant. "Need to know more before hearing." "Sarah, you remember your father talking about watch?" She shook her head, then paused. "Wait, once, when he was drinking, he mentioned his insurance policy. Said if anything happened to him, we should look to the watch and the well." Insurance against what? Or whom? Reverend Parker wondered. Running Creek's expression darkened. "Maybe against cousin who wanted water rights. The night before the hearing, none could sleep." Running Creek found William on the porch, grandfather's flute in hand, though he made no move to play it. Afraid, the boy admitted, unusual vulnerability in his voice. Running Creek sat beside him. "Me too," he confessed. William looked up, surprised. You're not afraid of anything. All men fear." "Courage is facing fear, not lacking it." Running Creek took Miller's pocket watch from his pocket, its broken face gleaming dully in the moonlight. "This watch tells story we don't fully understand yet, but important. Will it help us stay together?" Running Creek wished he could promise. Instead, he placed the watch in William's palm. "Carry this tomorrow. Remember, time precious. Every moment with family matters, whether many years or few days." William curled his fingers around the timepiece. "Do you think we'll win?" "Don't know. But know this, what we build together no court can break. Family here." He touched William's chest, then his own. "Not on paper only." Before dawn, Running Creek visited the well one last time. They were close, so close he could smell the water, feel its proximity in the dampening soil. But without striking it directly, they lacked final proof. As pale light broke the horizon, Running Creak gathered the children in the kitchen. Each looked their best, hair combed, faces scrubbed, wearing clothes sewn by Sarah and Miss Taylor. "Whatever happens today," Running Creak told them, his voice low and certain, "remember who you are. Remember what we are together. Family," Little Rose said with perfect simplicity. Reaching for his hand, Emma, fully recovered now, straightened the collar of Running Creak's one good shirt, a gift from Reverend Parker. "You look like a real father," she said approvingly. Running Creak felt his throat tighten. In his pocket lay the silver water pendant, their best legal evidence. But the broken watch now carried by William seemed equally important, a mystery connecting past to present, possibly holding keys to their future as they prepared to leave for town. Running Creak cast a final glance at their home, the repaired roof, the flourishing garden, the half-finished well. In mere months, they had transformed this place, just as it had transformed them. Whatever the hearing's outcome, that transformation could never be undone. The law might determine custody, but it could not legislate the bonds forged through shared struggle and genuine care. The Miller children had ceased being orphans the moment they found shelter in his protection, and Running Creak had ceased being alone the moment he traded his last horse for a house that held unexpected treasure. The territorial courthouse stood austere against the morning sky, its weathered brick and imposing columns designed to inspire respect for the law. Inside, the hearing room buzzed with whispered conversations that fell silent as Running Creak entered with the 5 children. Their small procession moved with quiet dignity to the front bench. Uncle Emmett sat at the plaintiff's table, accompanied by a smartly dressed lawyer from Phoenix. His confident smile faltered slightly when he noticed William carrying their father's pocket watch. Judge Hammond entered, and the bailiff called for all to rise. The judge's ceremonial black robe bore a single distinctive feature, a beaded medallion hanging from a leather cord around his neck. Running Creak recognized the Navajo craftsmanship, an unexpected symbol in this temple of white man's law. "This hearing concerns the guardianship of the minor children of Jonathan and Mary Miller, deceased," Judge Hammond began. "Mr. Emmett Miller claims custody as blood relation. Mr. Running Creak currently serves as guardian by circumstance. This is an unusual case requiring careful consideration. The proceedings unfolded with formal precision. Uncle Emmett's lawyer presented an eloquent case focusing on blood ties, proper upbringing, and educational opportunities in Boston. When pressed about his client's delayed appearance after the parents' deaths, he cited distance and delayed correspondence. Miss Taylor testified to the children's improved welfare under Running Creak's care. Mrs. Wilson spoke emotionally about her own daughter's successful raising by Pawnee. After a raid, Reverend Parker attested to Running Creak's moral character and the children's spiritual well-being. Then came the central evidence, the silver water pendant. Running Creak explained its discovery in the abandoned well shaft and its significance under Spanish territorial law. "Your Honor," Uncle Emmett's lawyer interjected smoothly, "while this trinket may be of historical interest, it has no bearing on the children's welfare. Mr. Miller's motivations for seeking custody are purely familial." Judge Hammond fingered the beaded medallion at his neck. "I'll determine what's relevant, Counselor. This court is interested in all factors affecting these children's future." Uncle Emmett requested to address the court directly. With practiced sincerity, he spoke of family responsibility and proper society. "While I respect Mr. Creak's temporary assistance, these children deserve their birthright, to be raised in civilization with educational and social advantages befitting their heritage." Judge Hammond turned to Running Creak. "Do you wish to speak?" Running Creak stood, unaccustomed to such formal settings, yet dignified in his simplicity. "I speak little but truth. These children not property to claim like land or water rights. They people with hearts, with souls." He looked at each child beside him. For 3 months we become family, not by blood but by choice every day. By care when sick, by teaching to be strong, honest people. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Running Creek continued, Apache way says family wider than blood. Includes all who shelter under same roof, who protect each other, who learn together. He faced Uncle Emmett directly. Man who wants children only to get land, not father. Not family, the judge nodded thoughtfully. And the children themselves? I'd like to hear from them. Sarah stepped forward first, her voice clear despite her nervousness. Your Honor, we never knew Uncle Emmett before he arrived. He's a stranger to us. Running Creek has been our protector, our teacher, our father in all ways that matter. Each child spoke in turn, even little Rose, who simply declared, Creek is my papa now. When William's turn came, he stood tall, the pocket watch clutched in his hand. Your Honor, my father wasn't a good man most times. He drank and sometimes was mean. But he tried at the end to do right by us. He held up the watch. This was his. It stopped at the well where he died, trying to secure our future. Judge Hammond leaned forward. May I see that timepiece, son? William brought the watch to the judge, who examined it carefully, his expression changing as he read the inscription. This belonged to your father? You're certain? Yes, sir. He kept it in his strongbox with the key and the water marker. Judge Hammond seemed about to speak when the courtroom doors burst open. 2 hawks entered, soaking wet and muddy, followed by the sheriff. Water! 2 hawks announced triumphantly. We hid water in the well. A commotion erupted. Judge Hammond gavelled for order. Explain yourself. Sheriff Daniels stepped forward. Your Honor, water's been struck in the Miller well. A strong flow by the looks of it. And there's something else. He hesitated. We found bones at the bottom of the shaft. Human bones, with a bullet hole in the skull. Gasps filled the courtroom. Uncle Emmett's face drained of color. Judge Hammond held up the pocket watch, the beaded medallion at his neck, catching the light alongside it. Mr. Miller, are you familiar with this timepiece? Uncle Emmett swallowed visibly. I may have seen something similar. The judge's voice hardened. Because the inscription is addressed to J.M., Jonathan Miller, and signed with the initials E.M. That would be you, correct? Water brings life, greed brings death. An interesting choice of words. The medallion seemed to pulse with light as the judge leaned forward. 2 symbols of justice, one from white law, one from native tradition, now aligned against Uncle Emmett's faltering confidence. Sheriff, Judge Hammond said quietly, take Mr. Miller into custody, pending investigation of Jonathan Miller's death. As Uncle Emmett was led away protesting, the judge turned to Running Creek and the children. This hearing will recess until these new developments can be properly investigated. In the meantime, current guardianship arrangements will continue. Running Creek's hand found William's shoulder as the boy stared at his father's watch, a silent witness that had finally spoken its truth through the judge's beaded medallion of justice. 2 weeks passed like a fever dream. The town buzzed with the scandal of Uncle Emmett's arrest and the discovery in the well. Forensic examination confirmed the remains belonged to Jonathan Miller, with evidence of foul play. Despite his protests of innocence, Uncle Emmett remained in custody as witness accounts placed him in the area around the time of Miller's disappearance. The reconvened hearing filled the courthouse beyond capacity. Running Creek and the children sat together, their faces composed despite the stakes. Judge Hammond entered, his expression unreadable beneath his grey beard. This case has taken unexpected turns, he began, revealing motives far darker than initially presented. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, I'm prepared to render my decision. The room held its collective breath. Running Creek felt 5 small hands reach for him simultaneously. Regarding water rights, the judge continued, the Spanish marker establishes clear precedent. Those rights belong to the Miller property and its rightful inhabitants. He cleared his throat, fingering a small velvet pouch that now replaced the beaded medallion at his neck. As to guardianship, blood relation typically prevails in these matters. However, Mr. Emmett Miller's claim is invalidated by evidence suggesting his involvement in Jonathan Miller's death. apparently motivated by desire for the water rights. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Judge Hammond raised his hand for silence. Moreover, even setting aside criminal allegations, this court must prioritize the children's welfare. The Miller children have formed a profound bond with Mr. Running Creek, who has demonstrated exceptional care and commitment to their physical, educational, and moral development. He opened the velvet pouch and withdrew a small object, a smooth river stone with a natural hole through its center. Running Creek recognized it immediately as a Hopi seeing stone, used in their traditions to perceive truth beyond surfaces. This stone was given to me by a Hopi elder when I first took the bench, the judge explained. He told me to look through it when law and justice seemed to diverge. He held the stone to his eye, looking through its natural aperture at Running Creek and the children. What I see through this stone is a family, not formed by blood, but by something equally powerful: choice, commitment, and love. He lowered the stone. Therefore, I hereby grant permanent guardianship of the Miller children to Running Creek, with full rights and responsibilities thereof. The courtroom erupted, some in celebration, others in protest. Mrs. Thornton stood to object loudly, but her voice was drowned out by supporters. Little Rose climbed into Running Creek's lap, while the older children exchanged teary smiles of relief. Judge Hammond raised his gavel. Additionally, I'm establishing a trust for the water rights, with proceeds divided equally between the children's education and community water access. Mr. Creek will serve as trustee until the eldest child reaches majority. As the crowd dispersed, Running Creek approached the bench, the children following. "Thank you," he said simply. Judge Hammond handed him the seeing stone. "Not a gift, but a loan. Return it when the youngest comes of age. Use it to see truth when the path seems unclear." Outside the courthouse, celebrations were cut short by Uncle Emmett's lawyer, intercepting them on the steps. "This isn't over," he warned. "My client maintains his innocence. Even from jail, he has resources to appeal." His words were interrupted by a commotion at the jail across the street. Sheriff Daniels burst out shouting for deputies. "Miller's escaped. Armed and dangerous." Running Creek reacted instantly. "Children inside, now." But before they could retreat, Uncle Emmett appeared from the alley beside the courthouse, a stolen pistol in his trembling hand. "Those brats are my ticket to the water rights," he snarled, desperation making him reckless. "They're coming with me." Running Creek moved in front of the children, hand closing around the seeing stone in his pocket. "No, I killed their father for that water," Emmett spat, all pretense abandoned. "I won't lose it now." His confession rippled through the gathering crowd. Sheriff Daniels approached cautiously from behind, hand on his holster. "You shoot, you hang," Running Creek said calmly. No escaping that truth. Emmett's hand wavered. "Move aside, savage." William stepped up beside Running Creek, unafraid. "He's not moving, and neither are we." One by one, the other children formed a line with them, a united front against the man who had tried to tear them apart. "What kind of devil are you?" Mrs. Wilson called from the crowd. "Threatening children in broad daylight." Something in Emmett snapped. He raised the pistol toward Running Creek's heart. In that suspended moment, Running Creek saw the world through the hole in the seeing stone, still clutched in his hand. Emmett's twisted face, the children's courage, the town's witnessing eyes. Past, present, and future aligned in crystalline clarity. He moved with the fluid grace of decades of desert survival. As the pistol discharged, Running Creek was already deflecting Emmett's arm upward, the bullet harmlessly striking the courthouse facade. With one sweeping motion, he disarmed his opponent and pinned him to the ground. Sheriff Daniels rushed forward with handcuffs. "Adding attempted murder to your charges, Miller." As Emmett was led away, Running Creek realized he still held the seeing stone, warm now from his grip during the confrontation. Through its hole he glimpsed the children, not as orphans anymore, but as sons and daughters. And beyond them, the gathered townspeople no longer looked at him with suspicion, but with something new: respect. Judge Hammond approached, eyeing the stone in Running Creek's hand. "Seems you've found its purpose already," he observed, with a slight smile. "Seeing truth when it matters most." 1 year later, spring blossoms dotted the Miller Creek homestead, now transformed beyond recognition. The once abandoned house stood proudly restored, its fresh paint gleaming in the Arizona sunshine. Behind it, a windmill turned lazily, drawing water from the well that had changed everything. Running Creek surveyed their flourishing fields from the porch, his watchful gaze softened by contentment. The water trust established by Judge Hammond had allowed them to develop an irrigation system that not only nourished their land, but provided affordable water access to neighboring farms. What Uncle Emmett had coveted for control, they had turned into community strength. Inside, breakfast chaos reigned, a beautiful disorder of family life. Sarah, now 13, expertly flipped cornmeal hotcakes while quizzing Emma on anatomy terms. At 14, Sarah had begun apprenticing with Doc Simmons, her natural healing abilities enhanced by Running Creek's traditional knowledge. "The radius is connected to the—" "What?" Sarah prompted. "The carpals," Emma answered confidently. At 8, her recovery from pneumonia had sparked an interest in medicine that made her and Sarah inseparable allies. William, 11 now and growing tall, sat carving a small wooden horse. His hands had developed remarkable skill, combining Apache techniques with his own artistic vision. Beside him, Henry bent over multiplication tables, lips moving silently as he calculated. Little Rose, 4 years old and fearless, chased the cat beneath the table, her laughter bubbling like the spring that fed their well. Running Creek entered, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. Beside it hung a simple wooden frame containing 5 eagle feathers of varying sizes, one for each child, received in a ceremony when Uncle Emmett's trial had finally closed the darkest chapter of their story. Creek. "You're back early," Sarah greeted him. "Did 2 hawks bring the seed?" Running Creek nodded, his expression holding news beyond garden planning. "Bring seed. Also bring letter." He withdrew an envelope from his pocket, the official seal of the territorial governor prominent on its face. The children gathered around as he carefully opened it, his reading having improved through nightly lessons with Miss Taylor. "What does it say?" William asked impatiently. Running Creek read slowly, deliberately. "The territory of Arizona hereby recognizes the legal adoption of Sarah, William, Emma, Henry, and Rose Miller by Running Creek, with all rights and privileges thereof." The words faded into a chorus of cheers and exclamations. Little Rose jumped into his arms, while the older children exchanged looks of surprised joy. "Adoption," Sarah whispered. "Not just guardianship?" Running Creek nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Governor signed special order. Judge Hammond help. We official family now. In white man's law and Apache way both." William touched the eagle feathers in their frame. "Does this mean we can take your name? Creek instead of Miller?" "It can be both," Running Creek answered. "Miller Creek. Honor all parts of who you are." After breakfast, visitors began arriving. First Miss Taylor, whose teaching relationship with Running Creek had blossomed into something deeper over shared books and lingering conversations. She carried a cake decorated with both English words and Apache symbols. Reverend Parker came with Mrs. Wilson and other supporters who had stood by them during the darkest days. Even Mayor Thornton appeared briefly, political instincts recognizing the shifting sentiments of his constituents. As sunset painted the desert in gold, Running Creek stood slightly apart, watching the celebration unfold on their land. Judge Hammond joined him, the seeing stone hanging once again around his neck. "Quite a transformation," the judge observed. "Both the land and the family," Running Creek nodded. "Water brings life." "Indeed it does." The judge smiled. "I hear the school board voted unanimously to adopt your water conservation curriculum. Apache wisdom becoming territorial policy. Who would have thought?" Before Running Creek could respond, William approached with purpose, carrying something wrapped in soft buckskin. "We have something for you," the boy said. "From all of us." Running Creak unwrapped the bundle to reveal a pipe carved from red stone, its stem decorated with intricate symbols, 5 small handprints circling a larger one. "I made it," William explained proudly. Sarah helped with the design. "It's a family pipe like you told us about from your tribe. For making important decisions together." Running Creak held the pipe reverently, recognizing its significance not just as a beautiful object, but as his children's embrace of his heritage. When smoked, he explained to Judge Hammond, pipe carries prayers to Creator, binds those who share it. A sacred covenant, the judge nodded understanding. As twilight deepened, the family gathered on their porch. Miss Taylor sat close to Running Creak, her hand occasionally finding his with natural ease. The children sprawled comfortably around them, secure in their belonging. Little Rose climbed into Running Creak's lap, touching the carved pipe with careful fingers. "Tell the story again," she requested. "About how you found us." "Not I find you," Running Creak corrected gently. "We find each other." He looked across their land, the flowing water, the growing crops, the restored house, all physical manifestations of transformation. But the true miracle sat around him. 5 souls who had ceased being orphans the moment they claimed each other as family. The pipe would remain unlit until William's coming-of-age ceremony, yet its promise already bound them together, Apache and white, past and future, blood and choice, a family forged not by law alone, but by the courage to recognize belonging when it appeared in unexpected forms.